Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty and the Frizz. My name is Kara. Whether you're new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me for another day of FRIZZMAS. You guys, this video, I don't even know what to say about it. It's a stressor, okay? And I'm gonna be ranking 17 eyeshadow formulas with my friend Jami. Her channel is I Am Jamila. We did this video last year around the same time. I don't know what we were thinking then. And I don't know what we're thinking now, adding like 2 more formulas to this list. But if you want to see me go ahead and try to rank these eyeshadow formulas, keep on watching this video. Let me know what you think. And if makeup is your therapy and your love, if it makes you happy and you want to hang out with someone that feels the same way, definitely consider joining the community. I'd love to have you back. All right, let's get started. So Jami is someone that I have come to really love in this YouTube community. She used to join my lunch bunches and just my videos. I used to do these live, I called it lunch bunch videos because we had this 2-hour lunch break when I was teaching virtually and I had time to do a live and it was great. I wish I could do more lives, but right now it's really tough. Anyway, Jami at the time was thinking about starting her channel and I was like, just do it, you know, and I'm so proud of her. I really respect her opinion on eyeshadows and love hearing her thoughts. She loves all types of makeup, all types of brands, but one of her things is getting this makeup at bargain prices, and she is really good at it. So if that sounds like a channel that you'd like, make sure you jump over to her channel after this video, see what she thinks about these eyeshadow formulas. I'm scared. So when I sat down to attempt to rank these eyeshadow formulas, I did jot down some notes about what makes a good formula. This is kind of out of order. It's not ranked or anything, but I have blending, I have richness, different formulas, enjoyable experience, sparkle, but not messy, messy/fussy. And then I put my non-factors were the color story. And that's tough. And what I think you're gonna see during the actual ranking is that some of the brands that you know I love are not gonna rank as high as you think they will because of some of the issues with the formulas. So this was extremely tough. Now, I also have some categories on the side, and again, this can change. But my top eyeshadow formulas, I wrote staples, A+ mattes and shimmers, richness. My middle group, I wrote depends on the palette. But some of the brands in this middle group, I don't know if that really applies. And then my last group, I have inconsistent and fussy. So that's kind of where I'm at with this ranking. I promise I'm gonna start with the ranking in a second, but I also wanna just share that the time that I have to play in makeup has greatly decreased. It's really changed the palettes that I go for. It's changed the looks that I create. And I actually have been enjoying softer, more subtle looks where I'm not using a lot of shades. I've actually been using a bunch of like one and done shades. I've been using like liquid shadows, the fussy shadows, you know, that I may have enjoyed at one time or that I didn't mind using at one time. Now, sometimes I just don't feel like dealing with it, even though I could create a great look. So I just wanted to preface with all of that. And now we are gonna get started. Jami and I picked 16 brands and they are all the same. And then we picked one wild card. So one of our brands is going to be different. I'm not sure what her wild card is and she doesn't know what mine is. So I'm so curious about her thoughts and I'm curious about your thoughts too. So definitely let me know in the comments and in the chat what you think. Am I crazy? Let me know. Number 17. I hate, I hate that I'm saying this because I really like this brand, but number 17 is Nomad Cosmetics. Hear me out because I am on their PR list, but let me just explain. I think Nomad's mattes are their strength. I've not had an issue with them. I really do like them. However, some of their mattes, depending on the color story, can be a bit ashy, okay? Just as Jami when she did her Provence palette looks, okay? Some of them can be ashy, like these. And I even felt like that on me. And I know that they show up, but it's how they show up. I feel the same way about the shimmers. It depends on the color story. Some of them can be quite chalky, quite ashy. I also have one of the palettes that I really like the shimmers in, so you can just see. Let's just take a couple shimmers here from the Provence palette. And you know what? I think I do need to turn down the exposure so we can really see this. The shimmers are often a bit thin. They're not in that richness category where I have my top eyeshadow formulas, and these were just not my favorite. Now I have the Costa Rica palette. Here is the Costa Rica palette. I feel like the shimmers in this palette just were different and they were much richer. Still a little thin, but more rich than the ones in the Provence palette. Just feel like these are, my camera's going in and out of focus, a little more foiled. They have a little more shine than the three up here. So it kind of depends on the color story that Nomad does for me. And I've noticed that inconsistency throughout several palettes. And despite the beautiful looks that I make, it's just not my favorite formula. So that's why Nomad is number 17. I still think they are a great brand, and I have several palettes that I truly love and adore by the brand. Number 16, y'all know this is gonna hurt my heart, but it goes to Melt. Melt Cosmetics. At one point, I wanted to say they were one of my very favorite brands because I just love the creativity, or loved, because I don't know what happened with the holiday season, but the creativity, the vision of the brand, the grunginess, Laura Oriano, I love her. Like, Melt just had a certain aesthetic that I really liked. You know, I was lusting for the longest time after Muerte. You hear me talk about the Rust palette and the 27 palette as like some of my very favorite palettes, and they still are. The problem with Melt is that they are really inconsistent, and that is really frustrating when you really like a brand and you're buying a palette. It's frustrating because you just don't know what you're gonna get. Are you gonna get the good Melt formula, or are you gonna get the crumbly shimmer formula? You just don't know. I had the hardest time figuring out how I felt about Amore Mariposas, but I have to say that Amore Mariposas is one of their better palettes. It has their best formula. It has the shimmers that are smooth. They don't feel like sandpaper like the ones in Muerte. They're not crumbly like the ones on the outer ends of Mary Jane. They are the good formula that's in Rust and 27. It took me about a year to deal with these circle pans, but now that I have, I can say I really do like this palette. I just was thrown off by the circle pans. I told y'all, when brands go from like squares and rectangles to circles, I just don't think that's the best move. I do want to swatch a couple of shades. So here they are. You can see just how beautiful they look. And you can see right here, they do not look crumbly. They're smooth. They're not flaky. I think my question is, why can't Melt do that with all of their palettes? So I also have Smoke Sessions, which I love Smoke Sessions. I wanna say Smoke Sessions does have like some crumbly shimmers, and I don't know if it's the light ones. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, like this one. This one's okay, but you can see that it's kind of uneven like on my finger. So it's okay, but like even the swatch, it's a more chalky formula. And then like some of the ones in Millennial Pinks, those were crumbly. And as I said, the two shimmers on the outer ends of the Mary Jane palette were not good, but then other shimmers within Mary Jane were awesome. So I don't know why it can't be consistent even throughout the same exact palette. That's frustrating because I did take out shades. I've taken out shades in 420. I took out shades in Mary Jane. I took out a shade in Rust, but I took that shade out because it was a blend out shade that I didn't need, and it was like almost white. I didn't need that shade. But yeah, it just sucks because Melt is a great brand. There's flaky shades. I want to say, even though I like She's in Parties, I feel like there's a flaky shade in there. There's one in Blueprint. I just don't know. And the shimmers in Muerte are nice, but they're rough feeling. And that doesn't make me enjoy putting it on. So I don't know why Melt is so inconsistent. I'm just not sure what's going on. So that's why Melt is number 16. Now, the brand for number 15 might be a little misplaced, but I will say I've not bought anything from this brand this year, and I'm a little bit removed from using the brand. But there is one product the brand has that I was really unhappy with, and this is Colourpop. Now, Colourpop was my gateway brand. You know I love the Child. Great palette. I've had a lot of great palettes from Colourpop. I don't think I've used Colourpop all year. I may have used the Child. When I went to swatch Gather Round Sisters, which is the Hocus Pocus palette from, I guess, a couple years ago, I really couldn't find anything wrong with this palette. I'm just gonna swatch a couple of the shimmers and maybe one of the mattes. I almost feel like Colourpop, that's the matte. It's just a bit misplaced. I think that the formula is okay. I think it's a great brand for anybody who is starting out in eyeshadow to be able to try like lots of different colors. They have so many color stories. It's good. It's not bad at all. You know what made me upset about Colourpop? When I started going through my eyeshadow collection and realized that I had a whole bunch of Super Shocks that I hadn't used, hadn't opened, and they had completely dried out. I was just really frustrated by that because it's not like I had touched them or anything like that. So those definitely have a shelf life. I had a couple that hadn't dried out, but if I had used it, you could forget it. And then there were some that I hadn't used that were completely dried out. Now, maybe I did have them for like a year, but I'm just saying, I want to be able to come back to my shadows in a year and still be able to use them because I have so many eyeshadow palettes. So that really made me frustrated. And I just had to put Colourpop there. They've got to be number 15 right now. I'm sorry. So this next brand is another brand that I really love, but I feel like the formula can be fussy if you don't want to take time with it. Don't kill me, y'all, because I love this brand. I'm still gonna buy everything from this brand though, because I love the brand. It's Notoriously Morbid. Y'all know how much I love Notoriously Morbid, and I'm an affiliate with Notoriously Morbid. But the reason that they're not ranking higher is because the eyeshadow formula can be fussy if you don't use it with something. And that really like takes extra time for me that I don't have right now. So you definitely need their shadow bind, which is their primer. You're definitely gonna need some type of glitter glue. I've recently discovered Doraline. You hear me talk about it a lot now. It really changed the game for me with my Notoriously Morbid shadows. And I said that in whatever video I was using it with, because I was like, oh my gosh, this stops all of the fallout. But if you don't use something and you think you're gonna be just putting on some shadow, it is gonna be all over your face. Remember, color story doesn't count, aesthetic, the brand's vision, creativity, none of that is counting in this video. The Loki palette is one of my favorite palettes by them. And here it is. This right here, like this flaky shadow is a world of trouble for me. I always have a couple of shades in the palettes, especially the larger ones, that I'm just not going to use because they're flaky. Notoriously Morbid shimmers, a lot of them are like semi-loose pigments. So if you don't like loose eyeshadows, I really don't use those too much. That's what you're getting here. Now you are gonna get some sparkle and some shine that you might not see with other brands, but if you don't use them right, you are gonna make a mess. The shadows are gonna be all over your clothes. That's just the reality. This is the Summertime Sadness palette. This one also has a flaky shade in here. I am gonna swatch a few of the shades. I do want you to see just how beautiful they are. The formula is definitely a unique one. And look at that sparkle there. I'm just letting you know it's gonna be everywhere. If you're trying to do looks with these palettes in some type of rush situation, it is not gonna happen. I always have to be super, super careful. Look at that, so pretty. That's such a beautiful shade right there. you're gonna get some shine like no other. I'm also not a huge fan of really powdery mattes. And I do find that these can be really, really powdery. They blend pretty well, but they're just not my favorites to like use and put on. I really love the more creamy and buttery matte formula, and a lot of the higher brands have that. And so that's why Notoriously Morbid ranks where it does. This could change tomorrow, you guys, but this is how I'm feeling. When I tried to move Notoriously Morbid up, I didn't feel good about switching other brands down. So this is where it's gonna stay for right now. But I will say that the Door line really changed the game for me with the shades, and you know, then I don't have to worry about doing my face first, because I do my face first. That's just the reality. I do my face first because when I'm getting ready in the morning, it's easy for me to do that and then kind of throw on something before I leave. So I just don't prefer to do my eyeshadow first. All right, brand number 13. This brand has only had 2 palettes, so I'm not sure if I could rank it really high just yet. Patrick, I know, okay. But here's the deal. Are you done your, no, you're gonna sit with August for a few minutes. You are. August is there. You can sit with him for 5 minutes. Oh my God, Marky and August, okay. So here I have the Major Dimension 2 palette. Now, the issue is that when I tried Major Dimension 1, I really did not like the shimmers in that palette. I really liked the mattes a lot, but the shimmers just were not shimming the way that I needed to. And I felt like with that palette and with this one, sometimes the shades can tend to be semi-hard panty. And that's what's making this one rank low, but I love this palette. Like, this palette is one of my favorite palettes of the year. So let's just revisit. I loved this palette so much that I went and repurchased the first palette, and I do enjoy it. I think that one of the things that has changed about me is that I kind of like a little bit of the texture on the lid. I noticed that, like, I'm wearing the Minka palette, and like this silver shade, there's some chunkier shimmers in that palette and then some really smooth ones. And I like having both of those textures. When I first reviewed the original Major Dimension palette, I did not like that at all. And I wasn't super into neutrals either. So coming back around again to the first palette, I really did enjoy it, but the shimmers in the second palette to me are way better. But I do feel like these really do mix a bit with the oils in my fingers. And I don't know if you can see, I just feel like these are prone to hard pan. So you just have to be careful. Might have to take some tape to them or something like that. But the shimmers are really, really beautiful. So I'm just gonna take these two. So you see how beautiful and wet those shimmers look? They're really beautiful. The other thing that I love about this palette is I'm just attracted to how the palette itself looks. I love this gradient from the light shades to the deepest shades, and I love that about the first palette as well. And the creams are great. The mattes are fantastic. He just only has 2 palettes, so I could see this moving up, but I just think it's too soon. So that is why my Patrick is ranking Formula 13. This is really hard, like, because y'all know how much I love eyeshadow. So for me to put palettes that I really adore at the bottom like this, it's kind of tough. So that was kind of like my inconsistent fussy shadows. And now we're moving up into a group of eyeshadows that I feel like have been pretty consistent that I've tried. One of the brands has a newer formula of shimmers that I'm not a huge fan of, but this whole group here is pretty consistent. So let's go to number 12. Okay, Char is number 12. I don't feature a whole lot of Charlotte Tilbury eyeshadow palettes on my channel, and I don't have a whole lot of eyeshadow palettes. This is the only large palette that I have, and this is the Bejeweled Eyes to Hypnotize palette. I do have a couple of her quads. Some of the quads that I see her come out with look so light, and that's one of the things that deters me from purchasing a lot from her brand. And she also puts out a lot of the same color stories. But again, we're not talking about color stories, we're talking about formula. I really like the formula of shadows in this palette. I really like the mattes. I've had no issues with the mattes. They're buttery, they're creamy, they're smooth, they're really easy to work with. I think the shimmers are also really smooth and consistent, and they have a nice sparkle. So I think this is kind of like a trusty eyeshadow formula that I think you'll like. Just gonna swatch a couple. I also love how beginner friendly Charlotte Tilbury is, how she has the steps and the placement of where to put the shadows. I think that's really, really helpful for someone who is new to eyeshadows. Let's swatch the Love Glow and the Dream Glow. So that's the kind of pillow talky pink and red, and then the purple. So here's Love Glow. And I think this looks really, really nice. And there's the Dream Glow. I ended up picking this palette up from one of the Sephora holiday sales and never did a video with it, but I think this is a great palette. I really like this palette a lot. And you know, the Charlotte Tilbury aesthetic is like that, I don't know, it's Hollywood glam, like starlit type look. It's very soft, it's very subtle. I like it, I like that look. I actually feel more into those types of looks now than I did a year ago. So I've really come to appreciate this palette. So that's why Charlotte Tilbury is number 12. Sure. So that is why Char is number 12. Sure. All right, you guys. Number 11 on the list is Tom Ford. Honestly, Tom Ford and Char, I just kept swapping them. They're almost the same to me, but what I notice about Tom Ford is that he doesn't really have like mattes. They're all kind of satins, but I think the Tom Ford eyeshadow formula is great. He's got these wet dry shades. I haven't tried like the regular formula, the one that's not wet dry, so I can't really speak on that one. Most of the ones I have are wet dry, and I only tried one of the cream ones. I do have the khaki and the violet sateen. I just haven't used them yet. So here I have metallic denim. Let's go ahead and swatch this. These are super blendable. The shimmers, well, I don't know, the shimmers in metallic denim are kind of sparkly. So here are two of them here. But they're really smooth, and I think they're gonna be more subdued than, you know, some of the brands that you're gonna see in the higher ranking formulas, but I think it's beautiful. And sometimes this is what I'm in the mood for, like something more low key. This one is really sparkly though. Let's look at Daydream, because I don't think Daydream has that type of sparkle. That's this purple one right here. This one's like more soft and subtle. So this is just beautiful. All of the Tom Ford quads that I have, I do like them, but I know he came out with one recently, the one that released with a Prey Ski, I can't remember. But like those shades, to me, those look kind of a mess. Like they were just kind of toppers, like super sheer, and they were so similar to one another. I was like, what's the point? So I think with Tom, you have to just decide, you know, about the color story. But as far as like how the eyeshadow formulas work, the blendability, all of the things that I mentioned, like the experience of putting them on, I really enjoy it. I don't have an issue. I think that if you like matte shades, you know, these are all kind of satiny and they work like mattes, but you might not like that there's not like true mattes in these palettes. I feel like they're all satins in the wet dry formula at least. So that might be something that you might not like, which is why I ranked Charlotte Tilbury a little bit higher, because I really do like those mattes. And sometimes the mattes like can really make or break it for me, because there are so many brands that have great shimmers now. Like there's so many indie brands, there's so many brands popping up every week. Like you can find a good shimmer really easy, but I don't think you can find good mattes as easy. So that's why the mattes are kind of making it for me. Now, formula number 11, I might be ranking an older version because I've not bought anything from this brand in quite some time, and it's ABH, Anastasia Beverly Hills. I know a lot of people enjoyed the Nouveau palette as well as the Rose Metals palette. I think that's what it's called. Now this is my Norvina palette. It looks brand new because it is a new palette. I ended up selling this palette early on and then repurchasing it, and I have not touched it yet. The reason that I sold this palette a long time ago was just because at the time, I didn't even have brushes. The only brushes I had were the ones that came in palettes. And so I had a hard time with the Anastasia Beverly Hills formula. But you know, 2 years later, almost 3 years later, I'm realizing this is one of the most consistent eyeshadow formulas that I've tried. And I think my favorite palette by them is the Jackie Aina palette. Absolutely adore that palette, love that palette. And that palette even had like a duochrome in there. So really, really good palette, but might as well break this one in. I'm gonna swatch some of the shades in this palette. You can let me know if the formula has changed since she's released these palettes with the bigger pans. I do have Primrose here too. So I'll swatch a few shades from Primrose. We can kind of see if it's any different. But here are a few of the shades. So here are a few of the shades. I just think all of the Anastasia palettes I have a very consistent formula. When I started doing makeup, these were the palettes. Like this one, Sultry, Soft Glam. I think they're great palettes. Now, let me grab Primrose. Now, the one thing I noticed that was different about the Primrose palette, and again, not sure if Nouveau or Rose Metals have the same situation, but these mattes were a bit powdery. They were more powdery than I recall the original palettes being, but I really love the shimmers in this palette as well. And Fire Opal is beautiful, like the beautiful bronzy. Look at that. That is so pretty. Peony. This one is Sparkling Amber. So this is really nice. And I do like the formula of the Norvina palettes. I only have one of those that I'm keeping, which is the number 5, which is the one that had all the purples. I think that formula is nice as well. But I think with all those big palettes, I don't know, the brand just kind of got off track, and then there was some political stuff with the brand. So I just decided not to purchase from ABH for now. That's really why I haven't purchased the new palettes. I think the new palettes look beautiful, and I've seen reviews, and I think the formula is still pretty good. So, you know, I've had these palettes, and I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. I think the formula is really nice. So that's why ABH ranks where it does for me. So that was number 10. Number 9 is gonna go to Huda Beauty. And what I love about Huda Beauty is the newer formula that she came out with this palette. And it wasn't the Petri dish. I took that one out because I just could not with that one. But just take a look. I really love these marble shades. They're really pretty. I love how they swirl together and you can make like just one beautiful shade. And they're like kind of like creamy. So my camera is like not focusing, but these are really beautiful. This was such a nice palette. My biggest issue with this palette were the shade names. Like it was just overly sexual in a way that I just didn't need. Y'all know how I feel about that. But this is pretty. And she's got some really, really pretty shimmers in the Rose Quartz palette as well. I think with Huda, I like the mattes too. She is a huge fan of these like beige and peachy, mauvey mattes. I really like those tones, so I don't mind them, but I know with her Obsessions palettes that she does get repetitive with a lot of those shades. She also came out with those Wild Obsession palettes. I have the Cool Tone Jaguar one. That one was really nice. The Love Fest palette was nice. I really like the marbly, swirly shades, and I think it was something different that she came out with. You know, before that, she just had her like powder shadows, and then she had like some toppery ones, and then some that had like glitters, like the first nude palette. And you know, at first I really liked that, but I've come to not enjoy glitter. So like those palettes are probably going to be decluttered. I have them in like a declutter area, so I'm not really going to use those. But this formula and the rose quartz and the empowered palette, like those shadows are really nice. I know some people say that her bigger palettes have better quality than the smaller ones, but I don't really have enough of her smaller palettes to be able to confirm that. So you let me know what you think, but she's gonna be number 9. All right, I'm gonna leave it, but I'm questioning where Thomas is because I don't know, they're all just really good. They're all really good. Okay, brand number 8 is another favorite brand of mine. It's Unearthly Cosmetics. Unearthly Cosmetics originally always had these like wet, kind of squishy type shimmers. We had a lot of those in the Warms My Blood palette. Here it is. I'm trying to look over here. I love these types of shimmers. They are absolutely beautiful. And Unearthly Cosmetics is the first brand that I tried that had those wet shimmers that I really, really like. I do see that a lot of indie brands now have a similar eyeshadow shimmer formula, but I love this formula by them, so it always has a special place with me. Why does that feel like that? Oh no. Oh no. Okay, so I feel like one of my shades has dried up. This shade Centuries. Oh no. Okay, we're gonna keep things the same. Let me swatch something else. I don't know what's going on. Okay, let's try this one. Look at this one. Look how beautiful that is. So gorgeous. I'm not sure what happened to my Centuries shade, so I might have to try to revive that. Here's a beautiful silver. I love these. I love them. And I will figure out what happened to the, I have to figure out what happened to that one shade because I really don't know. But then Unearthly Cosmetics started doing this densely packed type formula. And it's not bad, but it just wasn't my favorite. This one isn't a bad shimmer formula. It is smooth. It's just densely packed, and I don't enjoy putting it on as much as I enjoy those wet shades. But what I will say is the way that wet shade dried out like that, I'm a little concerned with what happened to that shade. But anyway, I mean, you see how beautiful it is. I just don't enjoy the experience as much of putting on the more densely packed ones. And the experience is a huge part of enjoying an eyeshadow formula, you know what I mean? So that's why Unearthly is number 8. Let me know if you have Warms My Blood. I know that they are spending the remainder of the year fulfilling orders. Maybe I got something on there that made it do that, because none of the other shades in the palette did that. This area right here, this middle group, this one's really questionable. I feel like a lot of them can move around, and honestly, in this grouping, Unearthly Cosmetics is the only one that doesn't really fit because everything else was kind of like mainstream high end. So I'm just not sure. Let's go on to number 7. We're really getting into some goodness here, okay? Number 7, I am gonna give to Terra Moons. Y'all, oh my gosh. So if it was based on shimmers alone, Terra Moons probably wouldn't be at number 7, but the mattes, the mattes don't blend bad or anything like that, but I break them a lot because they're really soft and they're really powdery. They're kind of chalky. It doesn't mean that they don't look nice on, but I break them a lot. I've broken several, and that's just because I'm kind of hard on my shadows. I do try not to be, but pretty much a lot of these mattes in here are, you can see like that they're broken. So I don't know if you can see right there, this area here. I've broken it, they've chipped. But you guys, the shimmers, I don't know what goodness they have in these shimmers to have that type of creaminess that they do. I can't even talk about the unique shades and color flips because that's not even what this is about. Hyperion, one of my favorite shades. Like they're buttery, they're creamy. I'm gonna probably have to redo this ranking because look at that. I'm just gonna swatch some different shades so you can just see. I mean, they're so smooth. And look how special those shades are. How? I hear a child. I love Terra Moons a lot, like a whole lot. I don't think Terra Moons deserves to be 7. I don't know if they deserve to be 6 either. Let me tell you what number 6 is. So number 6 is Adept. I'm wearing the Minka palette right now. I don't know. The leg up that Adept has on Terra Moons is, one, I like that they have these types of shades in palettes, and then 2, the mattes. I know Jami does not really care for the mattes that Adept has, but I have no issues with the mattes at all. And you know, I'm looking at the Heather Austin palette, and then I'm looking here at Minka. And there are like some really nice shimmers in both of these palettes. So let's swatch a few. So here's Heather Austin. You can see the dent here. We have this shade Scrubs, which is like a putty. That was one that I don't remember seeing in my older Adept palettes. So this one is gorgeous. Video Chat. Video Chat is another one that I love. Real smooth, fiery. Look at that, gorgeous. Here's the shade Smith. So those are like the smooth shimmers that they do. But now let's get into Minka because, y'all. So here's Nora. Now these are a little bit different, a little more sparkly, a little chunkier, but I love it. I do not mind the texture. Let's check out Ava. I mean, look at that. That is insane. So I like that Adept has like that variety of shimmers. If you want something a little more textured, a little more sparkly, you have that. And then if you want something smooth, you have that. And then you have a couple mattes to go with it. They do have some smooth shimmers in Minka too, like this shade Linda. And this one gives me like these Terra Moon vibes. Let's just zoom in on these. And these are absolutely beautiful. The plus for me is that these shades are in a palette, and I'm gonna go for those more. I do like my singles, but I have to be very deliberate about using them. But I really love this formula a lot. The shimmers in House of L, now those are really stunning. And I know that word is overused, so I don't use it a lot. Those really are stunning shades. I don't know what to say. I really like Adept a lot. I cannot wait to see what they're gonna do next year. They're already sneak peeking another palette that I know is gonna be a palette that I'm gonna want. So yes to Adept. Okay, all right, y'all, we are really getting into it now. So we are gonna go to number 5. Ooh, wait a minute. Hold on. I think I switched. I'm looking at here, I have a lot of crossouts here, and I think I may have meant to switch Adept and number 5. Number 5 is Odin's Eye, and I'm not sure if I meant to move Odin's Eye to number 6 or to number 5, but I'm gonna tell you what all the crossing out was about. So number 5, we're gonna keep at Odin's Eye. I think the reason why I was playing around with Adept and Odin's Eye is because sometimes the shimmers in these palettes can get some hard pan and make them a little more difficult to get out. I'm certain that's why I was flip-flopping these two. And I don't really have that issue with any of my Adept shimmers. But we're gonna leave Odin's at number 5 for now. Odin's Eye is another really wonderful brand. They do multi-chromes, duochromes, they have toppers, they have opaque shimmers, they really have it all. Here's one shade here. This looks very similar to a Terra Moons and to some of the ones that we saw in the Adept palette. Really smooth, really beautiful. They go on really beautifully on the eye. Again, some of them have a sparkle to them where they can cause some fallout. You might want to use your glitter primer. But I love this brand so much. I don't think I've created or purchased anything from Odin's Eye where I'm like, I don't like this, or I haven't been able to create a nice look. I am having trouble like with this shade Overheat. This is the Red Dragon palette. So let me show you this shade Overheat. Like this one is getting really hard pan as I'm trying to get the shade out, and then not much is coming up on my finger. So I think that might have been why I was playing around with switching Odin's and Adept. I love the mattes from Odin's Eye. I think their mattes are buttery. I think they blend well. And like you can use like contrasting colors and they still blend really nicely. I just did videos with the Christmas Eve palette and the Merry Christmas palette. Those palettes were absolutely beautiful. I'm trying not to get into the color stories because color stories will make a palette like your favorite. You know what I mean? I'm trying to solely stick to the formula. So I'm having a hard time between Odin's and Adept. I will say that, but we are gonna leave Odin's and Adept where they are. I remember somebody asking me before, was my palette getting hard pan? And it does a little bit. And you know, sometimes that can be, you know, a nuisance. But in terms of like the brands that we're looking at now, like you can kind of see what I like. I love the shine, the sparkle, the shiftiness. I love like some of these undertones, some of these reflex that you see. Some things in these shadows are really, really slight, but they make the shadows and the shimmers really special. And that is what I love to see. So Odin's is gonna be number 5. All right, y'all, number 4 is none other than, this is another one, oh my God. Number 4 is Pat McGrath. And y'all know I love me some Mama Pat. This is Venus and Floor's Luxe Quad Voyeuristic Vixen. This is probably my favorite quad. First of all, Pat McGrath, she also has very, very nice mattes. She makes beautiful satin shades, which I'll show you with Decadence. And then of course, you know, she has her special shades. She has her special bake shades. You can watch me rank the motherships. I'm not even gonna go into it because I have several videos on the mothership palettes, but this baby right here, this Rose Fire Nectar shade is one of my favorites that she's done. Very, very special. And it's not even her traditional baked formula, but this is such a beautiful shade. It's kind of similar to the one I showed you in the Patrick Ta palette. Really sparkly, beautiful, really glam. I love this one. Her mattes are very, very rich. I really like her mattes, even though a lot of them are the same color. Even though the color story is not always what I want, I cannot deny the formula. The metallics are just one of my favorite things that Pat does. I have Decadence here. Decadence is such a special mothership, and I went through and got all the hard pan off because there was some hard pan on here, but the difference is that even if the shade had hard pan, it still swatched and worked really, really well. And I didn't have trouble like getting a swatch. So like Divine Mink is such a beautiful taupe. That is just so pretty. And then Sterling, such a beautiful silver. I probably always swatch the same shades when I swatch Decadence. She has a really beautiful blue in here. I mean, this is such a galactic palette. Like I can see why this one was Star Wars, you know what I mean? Unlike Midnight Sun, which is not giving me Star Wars vibes, but this gives me Star Wars vibes. This is an excellent palette. Excellent and great for like those one and done type shades. You cannot go wrong with Mama Pat. I just think that the color stories and the repetition has really gotten in the way of the beautiful quality of her shadows, which is a shame. And like I said, she's got her baked special formulas. And again, I can link my Pat McGrath playlist because I could sit here all day and talk about Pat McGrath, which is why I'm kind of like, should she be number 4? You know what I mean? But we haven't hit my wild card yet. So let's move on. So brand number 3 is none other than Tasha, yes, Natasha Denona. And here I just pulled out my Glam Face palette. This is the deep one. I have just fallen in love with this palette all over again because I was just doing a video on the Lisa Eldridge Cinnabar palette and how I didn't need it. And if I really thought about this palette, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but it's one of those things, sometimes you have so much you forget what you have, just being honest. Natasha Denona, she may have my favorite mattes, like out of everyone. She does really beautiful creamy mattes, and then she has the cream to powder mattes, which I didn't really enjoy at first, but I absolutely love those. They may really be my favorites. They're so easy to use and easy to work with. And she does a great job with her shimmers as well. The shade Outer Corner is beautiful. Here's Inner Corner. Even just looking at Outer Corner and Inner Corner, like these are just beautiful, and she's so consistent, and the shades are just easy. You know what I mean? I don't really feel like I need to spray them. I don't feel like I need to do anything to them. They're just beautiful. Now I know Natasha Denona recently was a huge miss for me with the Retro Glam palette. That was a miss, but that wasn't a quality issue. That was a color story issue. But the quality is always great, but her strength is in the mattes. And that's why, like the Biba palette, I can just pull out the Biba palette and use it with my eyeshadow singles. I can take my bronze palette and pull that out and use that like with my Terra Moons singles, because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of shimmers in my collection that I really, really like. But the mattes are just, because that's where all the blending is. That's where like the, I don't know, the, what word am I looking for? To me, like the shimmers are what make the look, but like having that beautiful matte base, like that beautiful blend, like that's what takes it to the next level. Like shimmers are great, but we see so many great shimmers. So the Natasha Denona mattes are spectacular. They are her strong suit, and that is what makes Natasha Denona my 3rd favorite eyeshadow formula. All right, you all, we are at the top 2. Brand number 2 is my wild card. So this is a brand that I don't know what Jami chose, but this was my wild card. And I sat and swatched this brand and Pat McGrath several times today. And I mean, they're really neck and neck. Okay, let's just do it. Tammy, y'all, okay. I know we cannot purchase from Tammy Tanuka right now, but Tam, okay, y'all, like, first of all, the mattes. See, that's why I kind of feel like, should I move Pat up to 3 and Tasha down to 4? But, because Tam, okay, so this is the Toad palette. And the thing about Tammy Tanuka, see, I had to put the color stories aside, because color stories, hands down, she is beating out Mama Pat, because Mama Pat is doing kind of the same old, right? I see Tammy is almost like the best of both worlds, because she's got the smooth mattes, the beautiful multi-chromes. She has the beautiful foiled metallics. I mean, she has it all. That's why I had to put her in number 2. So like, this is the Toad palette. And I just love that. See, I like the sparkly special shades that Mama Pat has, but Mama Pat, I love her for the foiled metallics. And Tammy kind of has a little more variety with the metallics, because she has the duochrome. She has a lot of duochromes, and I love those like flippy shades, and I love how smooth they are on the lid. They look so good. Kind of like the ones from Terra Moons and the smooth ones from Adept. Pat McGrath doesn't have a lot of those types of shimmers. She has like VR Extraterrestrial. She has Blitz, I think it's Blitz Sextreme. Like she has those. Like those are those real smooth ones. And I think I prefer those to the more rough, like sparkly ones that she has, if that makes sense. The Black Glove palette, y'all. I'm just gonna swatch a couple of the shades in the Black Glove. So like, let's look at this red here, or it's not a red, I don't know what color it is, but look at that. Beautiful. This one is gorgeous. I love these. I love, love, love. And the mattes are so good, y'all. Like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to keep Tammy where she is. So sad that we can't purchase from her, but maybe one day. I really loved her palettes and was just starting to really get into them, and then we couldn't purchase from her anymore. So I do see the palettes that she's releasing, but just have to admire from afar. I don't really use these on my channel because you can't purchase them. If you wanna see inspo, let me know, or maybe I can see if I have shades that can dupe these, but I just don't think I do. I can try though, let me know. But that's why you have not seen any Tammy Tanuka videos on my channel, because once I got them and really started using them, we couldn't purchase them. And sometimes I don't like to show things that like people can't get, you know what I mean? Unless I can dupe them, but I have not tried. So there's that. So my #1 eyeshadow brand, I'm sure you know what it is. It is #1 for the 2nd year in a row. This is the 2nd time I've done this video. Is Sydney Grace. I don't know what to say. Sydney Grace is like, I can always count on Sydney Grace, and that's like the easiest way to describe it. The mattes are buttery and the shimmers are very rich. They don't do a whole lot of multi-chromes. Actually, I just got a couple new shades from Sydney Grace, but let me just swatch a couple that are in the Mountain bundle. Even their light mattes, I feel like they show up. So if you watch the video, and I'll link it, the Mel Thompson bundle versus the Natasha Denona Retro Glam, you'll see that even like the palest of the Sydney Grace shades were just more rich than Natasha Denona's. And I love the Natasha Denona mattes, they're great, but some of those lighter ones, they just don't have the richness that the Sydney Grace mattes have. And that's one of the things that I love about them. They are just buttery, they blend, but I think my favorites are just the metallics. The metallics are just, they're awesome. They're foiled, they're opaque. They don't even have like all of the sparkle. And sometimes like I don't need all that sparkle. I just love the richness of the colors. And even in this Mountain Trail bundle, like even just the slight undertone, the slight differences are just beautiful. And I didn't really organize these yet, so some of these may be mixed up, but I have the Christmas bundle here and the New Year's Gala bundle, but then I ordered these two right here. So this one's called Pardon Completely, and you can see like these different colored flecks in here. There it is. And I haven't swatched these yet. This one's called Brilliant Fervor. That was really pretty too. And I feel like with Sydney Grace, like for the quality you get and the price of the shadows, like this bundle, the Christmas bundle here, 20 bucks, the quality that you're getting for that price is really amazing. And it's the same quality in their palettes. Like there's nothing that I get from Sydney Grace where I'm like, it's not the same quality. Maybe I don't like the color story as much, but the quality is the same. It doesn't depend on the palette. It doesn't depend on if it's a big palette or a small palette, or if it's circle pans or if it's round pans. Like it does not matter. I said last year that Sydney Grace is almost like an anchor for me when it comes to eyeshadow. It is a go-to. I know that like the look that I come out with is going to be beautiful. The mattes are not patchy. The shimmers look great. I don't have to spray them. I don't even spray my Sydney Grace shadows at all. I don't worry about fallout. I don't get stuff all over my face. And I know whatever I come up with is going to be beautiful. That's how I feel about Sydney Grace. It's just not a fussy brand. It's one that I can go to without thinking. Sydney Grace makes my favorite cool tone palette, the Enduring Love palette. Quintessence is another cool palette that I really, really love. Of course, we have Tiny Marvels. We have the Retro Glam bundle that Mel Thompson created. And I am gonna start getting these monthly bundles too, because they are just quick and simple looks I can put together. It's just not a whole bunch of stuff with Sydney Grace. Super consistent, A+ all around. And then they have their creams. Their cream shadows are beautiful too. I forgot all about those. I only have a couple of those, but those cream, like duochrome shadows are excellent. I have to pull those out. I don't have the pressed multi-chromes, but maybe I should grab those. They are beautiful too. I've seen Mel Thompson swatch those. Don't sleep on Sydney Grace, y'all. If you have not tried Sydney Grace and you like indie eyeshadows, I feel like if you watch my channel, you've probably tried Sydney Grace, but don't sleep on them. They are amazing, amazing brand. Okay, that is my list. I am running out of recording time, so I hope I described all the brands. I hope everything made sense. This might be a long one, but I do hope you enjoyed ranking the eyeshadows with me. You know, a lot of times the eyeshadows that I use really depend on my mood. They depend on the look I'm going for. So I don't know if it makes any point to rank the eyeshadows, you know, but it is something fun to do. It's stressful, but it's fun. And I'm definitely gonna go back and look at my video from last year, because I haven't seen it yet, and see what I was thinking about these brands last year. I know we had some variations in the brands, and I'm just curious about what I'll think about these brands in the upcoming year. But I will say this, Sydney Grace, they will most likely stay in the top 5, because I think they are awesome. And I think all of these brands are awesome that I ranked. None of them have a bad shadow formula at all, or else I wouldn't keep having palettes from them. So, you know, I enjoy eyeshadow. I love creating different looks, and I really like playing around with these different formulations. So again, I hope you enjoyed ranking these with me. Let me know what you think about my ranking. Let me know what your top 5 brands are. I can't expect you to rank all of these, but yeah, just let me know your thoughts. And with that being said, please make sure that you check out Jami's video after this. Her video is gonna be linked in the description box. I cannot wait to see her thoughts. So thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me for another day of FRIZZMAS. I hope this was therapy for you. It always is for me. And until I see you again, make sure you are being gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.